All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
And good morning to all across this great land of ours. It is a pleasure to have you with us. As you can see, if you're watching on YouTube on this live broadcast, Kim is here.
Kim, how are you?
Yeah. Kim, how are you?
Pretty good. How are you?
All right. Well, and Albert, nice to have you back.
Albert, thank you.
Yeah. Albert's here now Monday, Wednesday, Friday, if you want to adjust your schedule. So this is a Monday, so Albert's here, and there's a lot of stuff to get to, isn't there, Albert?
I know. Yeah. Big weekend for sports.
Big weekend for sports, so the commissioner's office will touch base. We begin the ramp up to Coronation this week. And this week, in the ramp up to Coronation, we begin a new segment. It's called Talk to a British Guy. And today, we have a distinguished British-American journalist who will join us, Aidan Pickering, in the 11 o'clock hour. We won't just talk about the coronation, we'll talk about other stuff. Our own royalty was gathered together at the White House Correspondence dinner over the weekend. We have highlights from that and some reactions from the Fox News table. They were kind of roasted through the whole thing. So, in addition to that, Law and Disorder features an FBI training exercise that went sideways, where they literally were supposed to begin this exercise by taking on because it was just an exercise, it was another FBI agent, in effect, who was there to play the part of someone they were interrogating. They burst into his room to interrogate him. They go through all the FBI stuff. They throw him up against the wall. I don't know exactly. I'll share with you all the details.
Was there
only problem was that it was not the right room, and it was not an FBI agent.
What?
So yes, it probably led to some paperwork. Although what the FBI did as a result of it will also astound you. That's still to come. I have other stuff in Law and Disorder and things I want to get to as well that we have sort of tabled from last week. So we'll get to much of that in the next couple of hours ahead. Now, should I begin with the major announcement or should I? Yeah, I think we should, and then we'll get to the Warriors. Is that cool, Albert? Are you good with that? We have a major announcement.
A major announcement from the Mark Thompson Show. A major announcement.
The announcement is that we're going to do something for the first time. Yes, it will be. Don, thank you for reminding me. At the bottom of the hour, right after Kim's news, Courtney comes in for Mark's Murder Mystery Monday. And she has actually a couple of things today. She's been she now is joining us every other week because her schedule is pretty packed. But she has a couple of things as a result that she wants to get to. So we'll do that at the bottom of the hour. I do want to now follow up on the major announcement. Now, we're going to do something we've never done before. We need to do it's kind of to be honest, a mini capital raise, but it's not really that much on that. It's sort of an experiment to see if this might work as a way to gather and connect apart from the show. So we want to do our first ever off-air meeting. So none of this will be broadcast. So
there's never been anything like this.
We'll be able to talk about things, and more to the point, we'll be able to play some music that we can't normally play here because of copyright restrictions. There's going to be a lot of, I think, a fun element to this that goes over and above what we are even capable of doing here on this show. And we can also talk heavy politics. We can talk whatever. But here's the key. We're going to do it with just 15 people. That way, everybody can also participate. We'll send everyone a link who is part of this, and you will be able to talk about whatever you want to talk about. You'll be able to ask us whatever you want to ask. Here it is. We called it the Mark Thompson Show Happy Half Hour. It's a meet and greet with all of us. Albert, I didn't ask you. Are you free Thursday, May 4th, 7 to 7:30?
Unfortunately, I won't be, but I could try to make my way in. If
I'll be here.
Time.
If you're gonna, Kim will be here. And,
Kim, how are you?
Tony may be available, and Albert is going to try to see if he can't zoom in for a second. It's a private off-air Zoom meetup. Now, here's the thing. There are only 15 spots available, so we're selling them for $75 a piece. Again, this is to help raise money for the show. So that's the reason, it's to register, and it's going to go to the first 15 people, period. And then we stop. themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. We'll need your name, email, and phone number. You don't have to appear on camera. You can just connect with the link that we send you, audio. So you can speak to us without actually having to reveal, you don't need to get your glam team in place to participate. Again, it's the Happy Half Hour. It's a meet and greet with all of us. It's Thursday, this Thursday, 7 to 7:30. $75. I know it's a little pricey. It's a private off-air Zoom meetup. You'll ask us anything, talk about anything you want. Only 15 spots available. You want to ask about other hosts or whatever, we'll speak openly about that. We always do that. And from wherever you are, you can join us. To register again, it's themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. Name, email, and phone number, and we will contact you. Hey, maybe there won't be interest, But if there is, we'll take 15 people at $75 a piece. Now, again, it's a weird environment in which we are trying to raise money to, meet payroll and stuff for the show. I was on a conference call early this morning to folks on the East Coast about different ways to try to bring revenue into the show so that we don't have to just solely depend on you. But right now, as we grow, we're not quite big enough to bring in a real self-sustaining situation. So we count on you, and thank you, all of you who have become patrons and who have joined us through PayPal. I'll try to recognize a couple of you a little bit later in the show. Anyway, hope we'll get enough to join. I think it could be something really fun.
Yeah.
And Kim and I were talking about it over the weekend, and we think it could really be like a sort of I don't want to say raucous, maybe a bit raucous, a little raw kind of after-hours thing.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in joining, again, contact us at themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. The first 15 get those spots. So there it is. Happy half hour.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Commissioner, I want to ask you, the Dubs put up some serious numbers, but most specifically it was Curry who was on fire last night. Tell us what was going on. It was yesterday. Was it yesterday afternoon, or I guess it was yesterday afternoon?
Yeah, it was like a 12 p.m. start, which was a little weird, but Curry
Sunday,
played a little well. He played okay. He was decent, Just a casual 50-point performance from him, and that
was a record, right?
First ever 50-point performance in a Game 7 closeout game in NBA history. So that's pretty impressive. And you could see
never been anything like this.
Okay,
exactly, never been anything like this. You could kind of see him feeling like he could get to 50 somewhere in the fourth quarter. They're already up kind of like by double digits, and he's just like pouring it on. So he reached that, and the stress is gone. It was really close. The Kings have a great young team. They don't quite have the experience that the Warriors have. Their coach is a former Warriors coach, so he kind of knew all the secrets and all the negative tendencies of the Warriors were kind of like magnified because the head coach of the Kings was an assistant coach for us for all of our championship runs, almost.
Does now it's the Lakers, right? Lakers and Warriors.
Yeah, we all wanted to see. We all wanted a repeat of the Grizzlies and the Warriors from last season. Unfortunately, the Grizzlies are just a train wreck of a team, and they lost to the Lakers, which will be a classic franchise. We beat the Kings of the Northern California teams are going to play the Kings of the Southern California teams, so it'll be fun.
You should mention Looney
Looney, yeah, he put a historical his 320 rebound performances in this series is actually another NBA record. So it's got to be frustrating for the Kings to see Curry pop off and then your team not be able to grab a rebound. It's I can only imagine how frustrating it was to watch. But Looney,
well, someone told me that the Kings announcers were not even angered, or they were sort of just in awe of how spectacular the Warriors were.
I mean, they're not used to playing games in important games, Mark. So maybe this is their first taste in a long time since the scandal. Honestly, the scandal, the Tim Donaghy scandal, the referee scandal against the Lakers. That's probably the last time they're in the playoffs. So it's
just on that. By the way, if you ever want to see a really good doc on that, I believe it's on Amazon. There is or maybe it's HBO. Anyway, check this. You can Google it and see about point shaving scandals generally.
Google it.
The thing about point shaving scandals and referees that I learned was associated with the fact that the league talks to refs and tells them, don't call fouls on our stars. Essentially, they say that. That wasn't even the focus of the doc, but I thought, wow, that's big. You know, you want the game to be called fairly, right?
Yeah.
And the notion that the refs are told don't call, for example, don't call fouls on Steph Curry. He's a draw, in effect. Don't call fouls on LeBron James. Now, when they say don't call him, they mean give those guys a little more wiggle room. But I was, maybe you, Commissioner, were sort of not surprised by that news, but to me it was like, that was kind of a bummer. I'd like a game that is fairly officiated, start to finish,
Yeah, and it's like last night, it seemed kind of suspect because it's just a lot of whistles happened in the third quarter. Like the Warriors could not make a free throw in the third quarter, but they had a bunch of free throws, and that's very uncharacteristic. I'm sure Kings fans with tinfoil caps on are thinking like there's some tampering here, but I think it was a legit game, and unfortunately the refs have been really inconsistent. Not inconsistent enough to think that there's any scandals going on this season, but
the other thing I wanted to ask you about, and I know then we'll move on. We're not really a sports show. It's just it is sort of interesting. We have the commissioner with us. We have to talk sports. So as the Dubs move on to play the Lakers, that game will be tonight, right? No, when is the game? I'm sorry, not tonight. Tuesday.
They'll be
right?
playing Tuesday, so I think tomorrow.
And they'll start in L.A. or start in San Francisco?
We're actually a higher seed than L.A., so we somehow ended up facing the on paper lesser team, and we get home court advantage, and it's going to be fun. We played against LeBron a ton when in his Cleveland days. It was like every finals we're going there and either decimating the Cavaliers or blowing a 7-game series. So it's going to be fun.
So in this case, it's the Lakers. Yeah, the Giants played in Mexico City, and
at a higher altitude than Denver, Colorado, which is obviously the mile-high city. It's known for home runs. It's known for using a humidor just to keep balls like at a correct temperature and width, But that first game was insane. Like that was a football score. If you close your eyes and you looked at the score, or someone told you the score of a game, it was like 19-11 or something.
Yeah,
like
there were 11 home runs in this high elevation Mexico City game. And
there's never been anything like this.
There really hasn't. 16-11 was the final score. Giants lost to the Padres. But Brandon Crawford, who I think homered twice.
I think it could have been 3 times. He had one home run called back too. So
he said even just to jog around the bases after you've hit a home run is exhausting at this altitude.
I mean, it's a terrible time to be a pitcher. I'm sure when the pitchers heard that they're going to be in Mexico City, there's a lot of contract stipulations. Like, all right, you gotta, if you're under this amount of runs allowed and this stuff. So I'm sure they were kind of stressing going to a crazy elevation city. I'm sure that it was great for fans. It pretty much grew the game in Mexico City, which is obviously the plans for baseball. Baseball is trying a whole bunch of new things this season, and
yeah,
I mean, it would be fun to have a team there. No pitcher would sign in Mexico City, but I mean, it's great television.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, people like to see the ball leave the yard, but the people who don't like to see the ball leave the yard are the pitchers. So Commish, anything else? Closing remarks as we move on? You have anything else from the office? No?
A couple seasons ago, the Warriors had a record-breaking regular season that went 73-9. In hockey, the Boston Bruins basically did the same thing in their regular season, and they actually lost in the first round of the playoffs. So not a good look for
Boston
in the
fans,
NBA and in the NHL. A lot of the higher seeds lost this year. So kind of like
From
March
Randy,
Madness, a lot of upsets.
The deputy commissioner for the day is Randy, who notes this in the chat. Interesting information for NBA playoffs at this point. The remaining seed teams are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Is that correct, Commish?
That is correct. And actually, I think the top 4 seeds in... Oh, no. Yeah, I think a couple of the top seeds in both conferences lost. So the favorites now on paper are the Celtics and the Nuggets. Those are the... And obviously, the Bucks had a catastrophic collapse, and Jimmy Butler hit an insane shot to tie the game. Again, we're not a sports show, but if you want to look up a crazy shot at the end of the game to extend it to overtime, that Jimmy Butler shot was the one.
He's a phenom, Jimmy Butler. There, so, Commish, always a fine report. Thank you.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Well, one of the other things that went on over the weekend, and then we can get to First Republic and the takeover by the FDIC and the sale of First Republic. I also want to get to the WGA strike. The deadline is midnight tonight. Will you watch that, Kim? I don't know. I mean, the Writers Guild may go on strike in Hollywood.
Yep, looks like it.
So we're watching that as well. There's a California bill that would require drug education in schools. That's because of so many fentanyl deaths here in the state. I'll get to as many of these stories as I possibly can.
They're putting some vending machines with Narcan in some high schools, it looks like, or at least making the Narcan available. That's how big the problem is.
Just crazy where we've come. Really is crazy. Of course, that horrible incident in Texas in which this dude goes nuts with a mass shooting. He has an assault-style weapon, and he was shooting it off, as you know, and the next-door neighbors. He apparently used to shoot it off pretty regularly, and cops have been called to this area before. And this is about 55 miles northeast of Houston, Texas, and guy went over and asked for him to stops after 11 o'clock at night because the baby was unable to get to sleep. As a newborn, I think it was less than a year old, though.
Somebody's firing guns in the front yard.
Yeah, using an AR-15 style rifle. So not only did this apparently drunk a-hole who opened fire not stop the shooting, but he went over into their house and killed them, execution style, with this weapon. It's positively nauseating, frankly. And then what happened after that was bizarre as well. The governor of Texas, this Greg Abbott, who's by all, I think, measurements, a pretty tone-deaf dude. I mean, he's very traditional, right-wing, extreme Texan. He posted first a picture of a dog. It was like a Labrador type dog, saying, kind of having smiles for the weekend type thing. This is on the heels of, when something like this happens, there's a mass shooting in your state, you should marshal all those resources, media and others, to deal with it. All smiles for the weekend. That's not an appropriate communication on Twitter or anywhere else. Then he posted another post on Twitter saying, essentially, the state will offer a $50,000 reward for the perpetrators of these for the apprehension or information leading to the apprehension of this person who perpetrated this assault, and murder and massacre of these illegal immigrants. It's just a weird detail that you would include illegal immigrants and all of that. Why is that germane? The only reason it's germane is to communicate something, right? So I found that offensive. I really did. I mean, you see the slaughter of, an 8-year-old boy. It's and not to mention the rest of the family. It's just, it's grotesque. It's the only way to put it. So,
it's the latest though in one of these shootings where it just doesn't make any sense. It's just for some stupid reason, ringing the wrong doorbell, getting into the wrong car, asking someone to, quiet down the gunfire after 11 at night. All these things, it's just, you think it's just this innocuous thing. And all of a sudden it ends up in a death or a shooting or a wounding or what have you.
That's exactly right. Innocuous is a ding word, by the way. But that's exactly right. I mean, it's just that. It's something so mundane.
Yeah.
Asking a neighbor to turn music down or to quiet down, or asking, it all of a sudden has become this, hugely dangerous thing now that everybody's got a weapon.
Well, and I would have thought that it was the polite way to go. I mean, wouldn't you rather, if you are making a racket, have someone come knock on the door from next door and say, hey, listen, my baby's trying to sleep, wondering if you can just, turn it down a bit, rather than having that neighbor jump to calling the cops? Isn't it always better to work it out between each other rather than getting law enforcement involved? But now, I mean, who wants to go take a chance? Now, probably better just to call the police and say,
exactly. And
hey, can you have that guy turn it down? And we're not able to deal with each other.
That has its own blowback, right? You call the cops on me, man. You call the cops on me.
Right.
Beth says the sheriff got it right. That's true. The sheriff, in a very emotional press conference, did get it right. He said it didn't matter if the 8-year-old victim was legal, illegal, whatever. Yeah. It didn't matter whether any of these people were, of course.
Life is life.
Yeah. Alcohol or drugs involved plus mental illness, says Mackay. I would say this. It's always alcohol, drugs, or mental illness, isn't it? I mean, couldn't I say it's mental illness on most of these things? Disgruntled worker goes into the workplace and shoots it up. You could say it's mental illness, right? The guy became completely detached. So I feel like that's sort of like F7 on the computer key, right? I mean, that's like it's always one of those things. Alcohol, drugs, mental illness. The big, that's your triangle of blame. But here we go. This is from Clark Reed. Remember Clark Reed?
I love Clark Reed.
Yeah,
Hi,
he's
Clark.
great. He's still on, I think, Nikki's show occasionally with tech stuff.
Yeah.
I was just in a supermarket in Colorado, he says. Guy in front at checkout had shorts, flip-flops, and a large pistol strapped to his hip.
Oh.
And an extra clip in his back pocket.
Oh, just in case, right?
God.
What?
Yeah, that's Colorado. Wow. What I wanted to share with you, and I'll still do it here right now, is something else that happened over the weekend of sort of a lighter variety, and that is the White House Correspondence Dinner. Now, the White House Correspondence Dinner is a dinner organized to ultimately provide scholarships for journalism, and along the way, you see the glitterati of Washington all collecting in one place. Legislators, journalists, right-wing, left-wing, conservatives, libs, they're all in one spot. Glitterati is a ding word. So let's take a look at a little bit. You have Roy Wood Jr.?
I do. I have a couple clips here.
You want to start with, why don't we start with, go ahead. We'll start with Roy Wood Jr. a little bit, just to give you a feel for it if you missed it. This is Roy Wood Jr., brilliant comic from The Daily Show. Very smart dude.
But tonight is all about you all, the journalists, the defenders of free speech, the people who show truth to the world through different mediums, through television, through print, through radio, through whatever China let us see on TikTok. But the industry that covers all of these scandals isn't immune to them themselves. The issue with good media is that Most people can't afford that. All the essential, fair, and nuanced reporting, it's all stuck behind a paywall. People can't afford rent. People can't afford food, not healthy food. They can't afford an education. They damn sure can't afford to pay for the truth. Say what you want about a conspiracy theory, but at least it's affordable. I mean, well, unless you Alex Jones, it'll cost you about $900 million. And I understand that we have to put the stuff behind the paywall because creating the truth is important. People can't afford the truth, but you all can't afford to go find the truth for free. The work you do as journalists is important, it's essential, it's dangerous. My father was an embedded reporter on the front lines with black platoons in Vietnam. He was in the South African Soweto riots, he covered that.
I didn't realize his father was
the Civil War in Rhodesia, which we know today as Zimbabwe. My father came back home and co-founded the National Black Network because he wanted to tell black stories. It's American Urban Radio Networks now, and they've been doing it 50 years, and that's part of what my father wanted to build, you know. And I know it was hard because, you know, black daddies love telling you when something was difficult. They were shooting at me, boy, but I never dropped my tape recorder. My daddy tell war stories like Brian Williams. All right, Lester Holt didn't laugh at that one. Okay, so good journalism costs. That's the truth of the matter. Good journalism costs the people, but it also costs the journalists. It could even cost you your freedom. We talked about Evan of the Wall Street Journal sitting in a Russian prison as we speak on espionage charges. Yeah. Which espionage charges, by the way, that's the foreign equivalent of saying someone fits the description. Evan and hundreds of journalists, they're imprisoned all over the world simply for doing their job. And we got to defend
Albert, congratulations on finding the one long part of Roy Wood Jr. that is both, it's compelling, but is not in the least bit funny. So thank you very much for that. He's a comedian. Albert, go back to the beginning, about 45 seconds in, and run a little bit of the beginning, if you would,
It
please.
was good stuff, though, I will say.
It's very good. Actually, I'm glad that Albert ran that.
Yeah.
It's my job to blame Albert for stuff, but it's truly...
Whoever is producing this thing has no idea what they're doing.
What I'm trying to say is that that does establish his bona fides and his legitimacy as a speaking a journalist. But I'm just saying he's funny also, Albert. So let's play a little bit of the. Here we go. Here he is. I think you can.
Give it up for Dark Brandon.
Crank it up a little bit. This is as loud as it gets.
I think you left some of your classified documents up here. You can get to
Yeah, this is as loud as it could get.
Don't give them to him. I'll put him in a safe place. He don't know where to keep them. Happy to be here, though. Happy to be here. Very happy to be here. So it's a pleasure to be here amongst our country's greatest leaders, distinguished media organizations, both Property Brothers and Dr. Fauci. If you see Fauci, take a picture with him. That's your new booster shot.
That's not
But
fake.
y'all look good,
That's
though.
real.
I've been watching and looking around all night. Y'all look good. You dressed nice. You got the nice threads on. You got the jewelry glistening. Look like everybody got a little piece of that settlement money from Fox News. And that's all I have to say about that, because I'm not going to have Dominion on my ass. I love Dominion. Matter of fact, let me just say right now, my favorite voting machine is Dominion voting machines. When I go to the polls, I make sure it is a Dominion machine that I use. If your election needs the truth, put Dominion in your booth. I ain't gonna get sued. There's 3 people you don't want to see in the courtroom. That's Dominion, Cardi B, or Gwyneth Paltrow. You gonna lose. I'd like to thank Tamara Keith and the White House Correspondence Association for having me. Thank you for that.
That became a runner. You can wrap it up, Albert. I'm sorry we can't share more with you, but it's all up there, and I've tweeted it over the weekend, and you can find it all over YouTube. He's really good, and that Dominion thing became a runner for him throughout the night. He is just terrific. And I've seen him now host The Daily Show as they've rotated different correspondents into host, and they've also rotated different people into host. And I have to say, they're all really good. It's amazing how gifted all of these comedians, performers are. They're so smart, all of them. And Roy Wood Jr. has his own magical ability to make stuff work. He's just, I think, so sharp and so gifted. Biden went after Fox News, went after the right, and he did it in a pretty funny way. And we'll get to that in the 11 o'clock hour, around in the last half hour of the show, because Fox News Channel, not happy. And in fact, they, one of them walked out.
This is a word from the Lord, and he's not happy.
Yeah, because they were attacked, again, they were the butt of the joke from Biden. So anyway, more on that as I say, as the second hour gets going, but there's still a lot to do. We have Mark's Murder Mystery Monday coming up with Courtney. She has 2 pieces of important info to pass along to you. Also, talk to a British guy as we begin our ramp up to Coronation. Yes. He's a distinguished British/American journalist, so he will join us. And as I say, we'll revisit the Biden part of the White House Correspondence Dinner. Smash the like button like a boss.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Mark Thompson Show. We'll break for Kim's news. Do we still have the over-the-top medieval theme? Oh, yes. All right. And then Courtney next.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. Let us begin with the tit-for-tat lawsuits going on. Another lawsuit at Disney World after the board overseeing Disney's special taxing district, appointed by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, voted to sue the company last week. Well, now Disney is suing them back. Disney filing its own lawsuit against the board. The suits concern the legality of Disney's outgoing board voting to limit the power of DeSantis's incoming board. So now we have the dueling lawsuits. And it's a little bit troublesome for a lot of people waking up that are First Republic Bank customers, because they're now finding out that a lot of the bank's assets have been sold. That's right. Let me get the picture of First Republic Bank up here for you, because, you can't do the story unless you're seeing the sign, right? That's right. It is First Republic Bank, taken over by the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, the FDIC, today. Most of the assets of First Republic have been sold to JP Morgan Chase. Now, JP Morgan Chase is assuming all deposits. The word is that for now, First Republic Bank customers should keep on banking at their regular branches. You can take out money, do your banking as normal until you receive notice from JP Morgan Bank or Chase Bank that you're also able to bank at those locations as well. But the FDIC wants everyone to know that deposits are being covered up to $250,000. And interestingly, if you have already an account at Chase and First Republic, it's matching. So you're good for both. Your 250 is good at Chase and it's good at First Republic. No worries there.
Yeah, if you have 250 or less, you're fine. It's the bigger investors who are exposed. But
we're worried about
it looks
that,
it looks like the government is pretty committed to bailing out everybody. We had Dylan Ratigan on. He was talking about just that, but that we didn't exact as a government, we didn't exact leverage over management. And now you're seeing in increasing numbers reports suggesting just what Dylan was saying, that management took unrealistic risk with a lot of the investment and deposits, and that's what led to this situation. The question becomes, what's the cure for this? And I think Russ is right in the chat when he talks about corporate welfare. There is an aspect of this which is bailing out big banks that have taken irresponsible risk with the money. The question becomes, though, what do? You can't let the banking system go down. And if you let a few banks falter, might that happen? This is what we talked to Dylan about. He said you've got to bail them out, but he also said, but you need to, again, get concessions from management as to what's going to happen with risk going forward. It's been suggested, and then I'll let you move on, Kim, but it's been suggested that banks pay an additional insurance fee to cover what the FDIC is having to cover now. So, again, all these things are on the table. Ro Khanna, for example, thinks that, the progressive legislator from the Bay Area thinks that you should bail them all out. The minute you bail them all out, you basically say, okay, you guys can take whatever risk you want because the government's going to backstop you. So this is an ongoing issue. We'll have Dylan back to talk about it. Anyway, there you go.
I was reading a story on CNN.com today talking about how this is not the last bank situation, that the Biden administration is going to be dealing with, bank and possible bank failures. And this whole thing is not over yet. So this just becomes then really the latest situation, and that we're still going to have trouble down the road. It's not going away.
That's exactly right.
So we'll move on from that to the federal judge overseeing the civil battery and defamation trial regarding Donald Trump, saying no, I'm not going to be dismissing this case. Said no to the former president's motion for a mistrial. This morning, the cross-examination of E. Jean Carroll continued. Carroll suing Trump, alleging that he defamed her after she came forward with allegations of rape. So that case moves forward. It looks like unions are taking hold at Trader Joe's. It's the National Labor Relations Board certifying the newly formed union of employees at an Oakland Trader Joe's. That happened Friday. Workers there voted 73-53 to become the first Trader Joe's location in California and the fourth in the country to unionize. Looks like we've got some rain on the Bay Inn. Thought you were done with it, didn't you? No. Maybe it's almost feeling like summer, but here comes the rain. We've got some showers that could develop as early as this afternoon around the Bay Area. The sky's a little bit gray, but light today, light rain. And then we get a little bit more dramatic tomorrow with a chance of thunderstorms and showers Tuesday afternoon. Looks like a 20 to 25% chance of thunderstorms across most of our region for tomorrow. So, yeah, you think that we're done with this whole winter rain, but welcome back to the water. Here we go. We got anywhere from 1/10 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch for most of the North Bay, a little and the higher elevations, but a little less for everybody else. So.
And as much to the point, if there's some cloud cover, it helps with that snow melt. It helps reduce the snow melt and the rapidity of the water runoff. You know what I mean? If you get a real big warm up quickly, it really creates more increased, I would suggest, increased flooding concerns, more flooding concerns than there would be, otherwise. This helps slow that snow melt. So it's kind of cloud cover, and even light precipitation is always welcome. So
I think you should ding rapidity. So what you're saying is this is a good thing. We want a little bit of cool weather.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying, right.
All right.
And why I didn't say it that way, I don't know, because I had to say it in a more complicated way.
You're the weather guy way. It is what it is. So lastly, let's talk about this bear. A huge bear captured on video, just kind of roaming around a Southern California neighborhood, because why not? You can see him here, video from ABC7 in San Francisco. This bear was spotted in Arcadia on Friday, and he is just rolling down the street on Highland Oaks, wandering down the sidewalk.
There's never been anything like this.
Wow.
Look at that, like right past suburban houses there. They say that as the weather warms up, other parts of the San Gabriel Valley can expect more bear encounters in their neighborhoods. So keep the pets indoors and secure your trash cans and be vigilant, because, the habitats encroach upon each other. And we got...
And this is their new hoax.
No, I don't think so. I think it's real.
Bears kicking it in Arcadia. Arcadia's right next to Pasadena, right? I always get confused between Arcata with a T, which is up near, I believe, Eureka, and Arcadia with a D, which is near Pasadena. That's the bear one is in Pasadena, near Arcadia, near Pasadena.
Let all of you who are in Arcadia know.
Yeah. Watch for bears. Woohoo!
It's right at the base of the San Gabriel Mountains, Arcadia.
Yeah, and I think that's
they come
situation.
Out of the mountains. Right.
All those communities there are being warned to be vigilant because of that. Of course, the Mark Thompson Show is crowdfunded. that means we've got to rely on you. So you can help keep us going by contributing via Patreon or PayPal, and you can find the links at themarkthompsonshow.com. Oh, and so much more. I'm Kim
And
McAllister
so
on the Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah. Good day, sir. Seriously, what the
Google it.
Straight up, right in, no problem. I'm wildly enthusiastic.
Your Honor, I'd like to ask for a recess.
They pay me a lot of money for having attitude.
Why didn't you have better judgment?
What the hell is going on in the United States of America?
Can you let him finish, sir?
I love Mondays. So much to talk about. What a weekend. The good, the bad, the ugly. This is the Mark Thompson Show. I'm Mark. Kim is here, as you know, as is Albert. We got a lot going on. I'll revisit with you what's going on Thursday. We have a special off-air meetup going on. And if you want to be part of it, you can. Yeah, it's a meet and greet with the whole team. We call it the Happy Half Hour. It's 30 minutes. Anything goes.
There's never been anything like this.
It's off the air, so we can do all this stuff that we can't do on the air, like music and dancing. And, oh, my God, Courtney, it's going to be spectacular. Courtney, might you make it?
That's real.
Courtney might make it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely she says she'll make it. All right. So there's that as well. Anyway, we only have 15 spots available, so grab one now. It's themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. 15 spots available. There's $75 a piece. We're doing it to raise money to help the show, but I think it's really going to be fun. And if we don't get 15 people, then we'll wait until we do have 15 people. If we have too many people, we'll just give it to the first 15. So there's that. It is Monday, and Mondays, we like the mystery.
Welcome to Mark's Murder Mystery Monday.
She is mysterious herself. The person who guides us through Mark's Murder Mystery Monday is Courtney, everyone. Courtney, welcome.
Hi.
Seems to be a problem. Are you all right? Already an issue?
I was backstage. I was trying to express that I would be there, or at least in part, on Thursday. This is
that's great.
News.
Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be great if you could be part of things.
Mm-hmm.
Might we be able to see you on Thursday if we were to actually?
Yeah.
Oh, that's really good. All right.
Yeah.
So for the
let me finish.
For the off-air meetup on Thursday, the happy half hour you will be seeing. All right, I don't want to. There it is, Mark Thompson Show special, and now it really is special.
Yeah.
It's a meet and greet with Mark and the team and Courtney. So there it all is. These are all the private off-air Zoom meetup, 7 to 7:30 on Thursday evening.
Never mind.
Ask us anything. Nothing's off limits. And it is our first Mark Thompson Show special event. $75 for one of 15 Zoom spots. Good deal. Only 15 spots available. themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. Need your name, email, and phone number. Now, Courtney, thank you. Enough about that. Let's talk about murder.
Yes, I'm here to talk about murder mystery.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I saw an article about
how to spot a murderer.
Yeah, exactly. How to spot a murderer.
And this will come in handy for these summer parties.
Sure, you don't want a murderer at your
where
party.
you might be engaging with people and wondering if this person is a serial killer. And Mark and I both had a laugh at this.
and Little Anthony.
Yeah, and Joe Box and Little Anthony, they come in hard.
Article,
you know that they're there, right?
Mo Black's brother, Fat Andy.
Fat Andy, he's capable of offing somebody.
Yeah. It's funny the way that the article was introduced, because it was very much like, if you're talking to somebody and wondering if they're a murderer, here are some ways to identify that. outside of the fact that they would be murdering people.
Right.
And one of those is that what we say is not as important as how we say it. And so 55% of what people say is through their body language. Actually, only 7% of what they're trying to convey comes through their words. 38% is tone of voice, how quickly they're speaking, the color of their skin, whether they're getting red or pale. And so this article talks about creating a baseline. So when they're interviewing suspects or known serial killers, they're talking to them in a way that feels very familiar. And so they're asking them about themselves, easy questions like hobbies, family, personal interests. And that creates a baseline of what their behavior is, their speech patterns, the look of their skin, if it's changing at all. And then they start to ask them questions about the murders or any of the
I see. So
crimes
you're
that
saying
they're
that
being
when they
accused
speak
of.
to people who are suspects, they don't start right with the
No.
where were you on the night of?
Yeah,
They go, so
create a
what hobbies do you
baseline.
have?
Yeah.
Right. Well,
Yeah, like if you're on
aside
a
from tying people up.
Yeah.
All right.
Exactly. So
Are
we
you going
talked
to
about
post that? Are you post that?
Yeah, I'm happy to share that. Yeah,
Okay.
I think it'll help people out. But
We'll help people out in their conversations over barbecues this
exactly.
summer. All right.
It's a very nonchalant article.
What,
I'm here to talk about Candy Montgomery.
Candy Montgomery. Now, who's Candy Montgomery?
So Candy Montgomery was a wife, a homemaker who lived in Northeast Texas, just outside of Dallas, who murdered her best friend. And I'm here to talk about that because there is a new show on HBO Max, which is written and produced by David E. Kelley. And there was a show last year, almost exactly at this time, May 4th. It premiered last year on Hulu called Candy. And so because of that, I'm here to highlight this or talk about this murder so that if people are watching that show or are interested, they'll have some background on what happened.
Oh, that's cool. So this is the real story.
This is the real story of
Okay.
Candy Montgomery. So Candy Montgomery is a 29-year-old housewife.
But we're looking at her now.
Mother.
She's the murderer, you're telling me.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. She's not the murdered. She's the murderer.
She's the murderer, yeah. Okay. And she had that perm
Okay.
by choice.
But it was a different time then. I mean,
It's 1977 when she meets the couple, but who eventually she murders the wife. But this is 1980 is when the murder happened. So it's June 13th. It's Friday the 13th. It's 1980. Alan Gore is he's gone because of work. He's on a work trip. He calls his wife Betty Gore. He's trying to get a hold of her. Betty is a elementary school teacher that also lives in the area of Wiley, Texas.
there she is with the dog.
A suburb
and with the
outside
kids.
of Dallas.
Yeah.
Yep. And he can't get a hold of Betty. She's not answering the phone. And they have a young daughter who's 11 months named Bethany. And so Alan's worried. He calls some neighbors. He actually calls Candy and asks her about Betty. Candy says she had been there earlier in the day. She had seen Betty. Everything was fine. Alan eventually gets a hold of some men who are neighbors, and they get into the house, and they find Betty Gore dead in the utilities room, and it looks like she's been shot. So, yes. So now Alan's on a business trip.
And we see Alan
and
there in a
Betty
picture with
is
the kids.
murdered on the utilities floor, on the floor of the utilities room. Mhm.
Okay.
Turns out that it was Candy Montgomery.
Well, how do they know that?
Well, I'll give you the backstory. Okay. So Candy, Betty, Alan, and Candy's husband, Pat, were all churchgoers. They went to this church, Methodist church, that's in Lucas, Texas. I have a photo of it.
Yep, there it is.
They're all in the choir. And Pat's actually a very successful electric engineer. He works at Texas Instruments.
Mm-hmm.
He makes about what would now be about $330,000 a year. So they live in a nice home in suburban Texas, but Candy's just a bored housewife. She's bored with her life with Pat. She has a little boy and a little girl, and she's really looking for something to kind of
Spice it up. Like killing someone.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Betty and Alan live again also in Wiley. As I told you, Betty is a teacher and Alan works for a telecommunications company. And so one day Candy approaches Alan after a church event and tells him that she finds him attractive and she'd like to have an affair.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, maybe church isn't so bad. I'm just saying.
This is a word from the Lord, and he's not happy.
All right, but I'm just saying that's quite a come on there in church.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, no. She comes on to him, and he at first is not sure. He says he's gonna,
He's not sure.
He's not sure. He's a little interested. I mean, she's definitely piqued his interest because he himself has some issues with Betty, but they eventually start talking every day on the phone, and they devise this plan over weeks. And they sit down. They actually have a list of why and why nots that they would do it. And eventually the list...
this is, when you say whether they would do it, you mean hook up or you mean murder?
Whether they would have the affair.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right now
there's an image of it.
And
they
they're
have
hungry.
All these... They have this list of why and why not. There's actually a screen grab from the TV show of
Do you have that, Albert?
remaking this list.
Of the
yeah.
list?
This is kind of a well thought out affair. I mean, usually it's just kind of a passionate thing that.
Yeah, that's the list.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, usually it's really passionate, but they go through everything.
Usually when you think about it, you think, should I really? No, I really shouldn't cheat. Right?
Right.
It's the not thinking about it that gets you into trouble, but not here.
Yeah, exactly. No,
Why?
I mean.
Yeah, why not? Fear of getting caught is number one on why not.
And also another big one is developing feelings for one another.
Oh, I see.
And so they decide they're going to have the affair, but Candy's very clear. If we develop feelings, the affair is done. And
it was a long negotiation, says here. It was over weeks they did this?
Over weeks.
Wow.
They started talking, I think, in October, and the affair began December 12th, 1978. And so they decide that Betty is going to pack a lunch and like a smart lunch, with appetizer, lunch, and dessert. She has chilled white wine. She drives and gets the motel room. They split all bills, gas, motel. This is all laid out.
I support that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she gets a hotel room at the Como Motel.
Mm.
Well, she actually gets a hotel room at another motel, but the second week she chooses the Como, and that is where they go for the rest of the affair. I actually have a photo.
Party of four.
No, I was not part of this.
There's a photo of the Como Motel.
Albert, the motel, please.
There we go. That was
motel.
Taken. The photographer said it was 1985 or 1986.
Kind of, it's a throwback kind of place.
And this is a more contemporary couple shots of the Como.
Mm-hmm.
So this is in Richardson, Texas.
They hook up there.
Yes. So they hook up here. She's wearing like a negligee. She's got the food laid out. She's got wine chilled. And they have small talk.
Albert.
They have a little
applauding the catering. So far.
Yeah. It's funny because they go into such detail in these limited series, just at how kind of absurd the whole thing was that they were laying this out. But they were very pragmatic with all of this. So she's wearing negligee. They have small talk. They have sex. It goes as what you're thinking, which is it's pretty mediocre. And that's part of the reason, actually, why eventually Candy loses interest, because the sex is not quite what she's wanting it to be if she's going to go through the trouble of having
She's
going to
put out a deli plate. She wants the real, she wants foreplay and all that stuff.
Exactly.
Not just a slam bam.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, I've also seen depictions of where Candy actually falls in love with Alan.
Oh.
So they're somewhat in conflict. The TV series show her falling in love with him, actually. And a large part was they would talk on the phone every day. And they would do sort of fun activities all outside of Wiley, right, in the surrounding area. They made sure not to do it in Wiley, which is where they both lived. So the series would have you believe that she fell in love with Alan, and Alan wants to stay with his wife. He goes on this thing called marriage encounter, which is exactly what you think it is. It's some sort of cultish weekend where you write down everything that's happening in your relationship. You try to reset the bond.
Yeah, that's bad. You might want to leave one thing that's going on in your relationship out.
Alan, when Candy first started the affair, Alan had never been French kissed.
Wow.
Now, he had a daughter, so there was some sort of intimacy happening with his wife. But I think that when they went to have marital affairs during this marriage encounter, I'm sure that Betty was like, wow, this is a big change. strange.
Yeah.
Because Candy had taught him a lot of things in the boudoir. Yeah.
Processes and protocols,
including
and
French
standards.
kissing.
Yeah, he had new processes, protocols, and standards. You're saying as a result of hooking up with this experienced woman who's going to church and hooking up with dudes.
There you go.
All
there
right.
you go.
Okay.
So they come back, and Alan.
But Candy was kind of disappointed with the hookups. So what happened? So where does she get to murdering the wife?
I'm so glad you asked, Mark. So they get back. Alan breaks it off, and then a couple months later, June 13th, as I mentioned, it was Friday the 13th. It was actually a month after the film Friday the 13th had premiered in theaters. Candy has the daughter of Betty and Alan Gore at her house. And she's got a full day of errands and activities for the church. This is Candy. And one of those activities and errands is going to Betty Gore's house to get a swimsuit for Betty's daughter.
Okay.
It's interesting because I actually have an image later that I'll show you, but anyway, I'll tell you about that later. But she goes to Betty's house to get this swimsuit for swim lessons, and it is alleged, right? This is all Candy's communication of what happened on this day. It was early in the morning, like 10 a.m. ish, June 13th. Betty confronts Candy and says, "Are you having an affair with Alan?" And Candy says, "Yes, I did have an affair with Alan, but it's over. It's completely done." And Candy alleges that Betty gets up, leaves the room, and comes back with an axe and starts to attack
So she's
Candy.
saying, I was defending myself against
Exactly.
Betty, who came at me with an axe. Okay.
So Candy kills Betty with an axe. She
wrestled the axe out of
wrestles
Candy's
the axe
hand.
from Candy's hand. There's actually a photo of evidence that was submitted in the trial where Candy alleges that Betty hit her toe with an axe.
Fingerprint links woman to axe slaying, they say.
Yeah, if you go
in
down.
the trial. And then we did have the picture of the toe.
Yeah, the toe. There you go.
Yeah.
Which I think if you got hit with an axe, wouldn't your toe come off? I don't know.
Not necessarily. I mean, it depends the angle.
This is a 3-foot axe.
Yeah, but
wood chopping axe.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just saying, it might not with enough force to sever the toe. Who knows?
Well, Candy gets the axe. She kills Betty. She hits her 41 times.
What can you tell us about the scene?
It's bloody, is what I'm
bloody.
guessing.
Yeah, there was a photo of the scene. I chose not to include it.
All right. So this bloody scene, she admits to it, or what happens?
Yeah. So she
calls 911. Somebody.
She murders Betty, and then she does what she had been doing during the affair, which is she goes to the shower and rinses off the blood. That was the other thing about the affair. They always took a shower and rinsed everything off.
You want to rinse that shame off.
Yeah.
Of you. Right.
So then, as I mentioned earlier, the neighbors go that evening. They find Betty dead. And of course, one of the first people that the police question is Candy, because she admits to having been there and picking up the bathing suit.
Can we get off the picture of the feet now, Albert, please?
Yeah, it was not meant to be up there.
Yeah.
So Betty is
there she is, Candy
arrested.
Montgomery.
Yeah. So Betty's questioned. She hires an attorney, someone from the church, and she turns herself in, and she goes to trial for the murder of Betty on October 21st, and she is found not guilty on October 30th
because of
self-defense.
self-defense. Wow.
Yes, and so she walks. Yep.
Wow.
She is. It's said that she lives in Georgia and goes by Wheeler, Candy Wheeler. Yes, and then Alan, who was the man she had the affair with, the husband of Betty, now lives in Florida with a girlfriend.
Wow.
So, yes.
So
and it has
the church hookup, which turned to murder, ultimately ends up with her being acquitted.
Yes, she's acquitted by
nothing.
Yeah, we don't get a guilty.
She's acquitted by 9 women and 3 men, and people were not happy. People were screaming murderer.
This is a word from the Lord, and He's not happy.
Let me ask you something about this, and we finish up.
Yep.
Do you feel that justice was not done here? That she should have been found guilty?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. They had a psychiatrist who said that Betty had triggered Candy, and that's why she killed Betty from childhood trauma. But yeah, if you're gonna hit somebody in the head more than 30 times and then hit them in the back with an axe, you've got an axe to grind. No,
really. Kim, I know who the psychiatrist was who weighed in on this case. Actually,
Dr. Emil Schaffhausen.
Yeah,
I'm really proud of that, Courtney. That axe to grind. I'm very proud.
Thank you. I know, Mark is.
I was not.
I
proud.
actually.
Oh my God.
Exactly.
I
It was
feel
not as.
like
Thank you. Thank you, Kim. Someone.
I feel like if you put out the deli plate and the smart lunch, as you called it,
Yeah.
that really, I mean, I can see the anger there. You know, after all of that, this is how it ends.
I know.
Yeah.
It's
was a
true.
tough
I
one.
mean, she went through the trouble of putting out the lunches and getting the motel and chilling the wine.
Seemed like there was a lot of stuff she might have not. She might have been frustrated with.
There was even the effort of the yes or no list. You know, after taking all
they went through the pros and cons.
steps,
Right?
they did all this, and this is how we no.
All right,
I know,
Courtney, we adore you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for having
if
me.
we get this thing together for Thursday, the happy half hour, you will actually appear on camera. That's very
I
exciting.
will appear on camera.
All right. Courtney, everybody, come on, yeah.
Thank you for having me.
We loved it.
Mark's Murder Mystery Monday on the Mark Thompson Show.
Well, coming up, it is the ramp up to the coronation. You know, it's a pretty big deal, Kim.
Yeah.
Us Yankees, I don't know if we really know the world of the Royals. So all week, each day, we will speak to a different Britisher. Some of them are Britishers / Americans now, you know, but they have roots back in Britain. And they're all distinguished in their own ways. Perhaps this guy today distinguished in ways that are particularly germane. He's a journalist, and I think his ties to the world of the highest levels of British society extend back into his childhood. I think you're really going to enjoy meeting Aidan next. So we'll take a timeout for Kim's news, and then a moment with Meet a British Guy. You've got to do it. I mean, in the ramp up to the coronation, it's just a great excuse to hang out with our British friends.
Is it wrong that I feel anger still, like a hostility toward Camilla?
He actually mentioned that to me. This is brilliant that you've asked about this. Can we do it? Can we do it?
Should we?
What do you want to do? You want to blow off the news and get right to?
I do,
really?
because I want to talk about Camilla and my. You know, the whole, like, there's 3 people in the marriage thing. It was rather crowded. And now we're supposed to accept her as queen? No.
Wow. You feel very strongly about this.
I do. I have animosity. And it's really irrational. So I'm hoping that maybe
you want to get right to Aidan. All right. Well, let's do that. Albert, you're good with that? We'll get right to Aidan. We'll get,
Yep, that sounds good, Kim.
We'll do Talk to a British Guy next. All right.
The Mark Thompson Show.
My wife wants some vegetables for crudite.
I was a basketball referee.
Feels great, baby.
Use Mark Thompson. It's unbelievably offensive.
What he's got going here is a situation.
I was fortunate. Everyone I worked with made me better at my job.
You are a cover-up artist, and you are a liar.
Oh, smash the like button like a boss. Give me a thumbs up. We got some exciting stuff happening this week. As I say, in addition to this next segment, we have Thursday, hopefully, 15 listeners, viewers who are going to join us on a happy half hour. It's our first ever happy half hour. It's a meet and greet with the team. It'll be Thursday in the evening, 7 to 7:30. That's why we call it half hour happy, because it's over the happy hour kind of period. Again, it's a private off-air Zoom meetup. It's a little bit of a fundraiser for the show, so it costs $75 to get a link. Only 15 spots are available. The reason we've limited is so that everybody can speak and talk and meet each other. You don't have to appear on camera, but we'll send you the link, and you can just click in any way you want. If you want to be on camera, you can. But again, it's not on the air. To register, it's themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. Name, email, and phone number. First 15 get this very, I think, special event pass. So we'll look forward to that. Now, without any further delay, it's time to kick off. Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Talk to a British Guy.
Yes, it sure is. And put it together for our first British guy, the great Aidan Pickering, everyone. Come on. Aidan.
Hey, Mark. Wow, what an intro. I had no idea.
Yes, nor did I, really. I knew that he cut something for us, and it's quite grand. There is a quality of, particularly this British royalty thing, that has a grandeur and ceremony that, honestly, I think we might pretend that we don't like it on some level, but it's a show. It's costumes, it's music, it's marches. Tell me your thoughts about all of this pomp and circumstance.
Do you know one of the things that is a lesser known about all that pageantry? Everybody assumes it all dates back to 1,000 years. Well, a little bit of it does, but most of it was invented by Queen Victoria and Albert in the late 19th century because they wanted to make the royals more relevant and bigger and more enjoyable by the public. So they went out and they bought homes, Balmoral, Sandringham, all these big castles and palaces, and they built gold coaches. And basically, a lot of the stuff that you're going to see at this coronation coming up is based on Queen Victoria's image and view of the royal family.
That's wild. I had no idea. You're absolutely right. I just presumed it was the legacy of centuries, you know?
I mean, there are some bits and pieces that are centuries old, and the main one is that crown, which, by the way, weighs 5 pounds. So take 2 large bags of sugar, stick them on your head, see how long you can hold them there before you get a neck ache. That's what Charles is going to do, and of course, his mother did the same thing 70 years ago. That thing dates back to the 17th century, but in the 17th century, Edward melted it down from 1,000 years ago. So that thing's like a recycled, upcycled 1,000-year-old crown.
Oh, that's great. I love that.
We have processes and protocols and standards.
Right. So Aidan, your personal life actually is really interesting, though, because your dad was, you're a journalist yourself. I mean, your dad was very much in the world of journalism and publishing. I wonder if you could just speak and then explain how that might connect the dots for us, please.
Well, sure. I mean, my dad became a journalist at the age of 17 and was still working up to when he passed away at the age of 91. He was not just a journalist, but a newspaper manager. He was an editor of the Daily Express, which in the 50s was the biggest circulation newspaper in Britain. And then he became executive vice chairman of the Times newspaper, which brought him very much into contact with Rupert Murdoch and the Rupert Murdoch empire. And, you know, he was one of those interesting people, I think, who had journalistic allegiances, but he was fond of the royal family. And was something of a friend to the royal family in their times of need, when particularly I think in the 1980s and 90s they were really being hammered by the tabloid press. And of course we've learned a lot about that period now, that the newspapers were engaging in serious illegal conduct in order to get those stories. This is kind of the interesting thing to me with seeing so much of Charles and Camilla and the royals back in the news in this way. They've got their own set of problems. Their house is not exactly a calm one with all that's going on with Harry and all the rest of it. But, you know, in amongst all of that, there's a bit of a distaste, I think, for some of the coverage that they've had to endure. And so I think the British people are a little bit stuck in the middle of like, well, you know what? We have this royal family. Maybe, like they used to say of the BBC license fee, it's indefensible but irreplaceable. And there may be something to that. What would you have in Britain if you didn't have the royal family? Of course, you could have a republic if you want, but who are you going to put on the banknotes? What's going to happen to those castles? They just become Disneyland in London. They do bring in a certain amount of, you know, foreign exchange from tourists, but also they bring a certain amount of prestige, and everybody knows them. So I've really come to the view that everybody has their criticisms, and people don't want to spend all this money, and sometimes it seems like it's too much. But you wouldn't. I don't think most people would want a Britain with a royal family, as opposed to not having one. They just may not want to pay
is the royal family self-sustaining? In other words, well, I guess I don't see how they would be. But I have to ask the question anyway. Where does the money come that supports them? I guess might be the way to put it.
Well, they get an amount of taxpayer dollars, pounds, I should say. But the thing that people forget is that the crown, Charles, now essentially is one of the wealthiest landowners in Britain, and one of the richest men in Britain.
So if he wanted to sell one of those pieces of real estate that the crown owns, could he do that?
I don't think he would. I think technically he can, but I can't.
Could he borrow against it?
Well, they've actually get huge rents from farmlands. They own whole villages. They even put up wind farms on crown land and got the revenue from that. So when the bill comes around, the taxpayer of £100 million, $120 million, people do say, well, couldn't you, work those farms a little more, raise your rents? Couldn't you pay for it yourselves? Maybe sell a little jewelry to pay for it. And so it's an ongoing debate. But I'd tell you something, Mark. The coronation is a sort of one day, and everybody will all do their thing, and there'll be some criticism, and there'll be lots of patriotism and flag waving. But Charles's job is cut out for him right now. It's really about sort of saving the monarchy. Queen Elizabeth did a pretty remarkable job over her reign, 70 years of making a royal family that didn't fall apart despite the pressures, and it was pretty close at times. And their polls are not good, probably worse than Joe Biden's. They struggle. And Charles,
and that's because of the anachronistic quality that they just feel like from a different time, or is it because of the specific personalities of the royals and their behavior or something?
Well, they do stuff that look at Harry's book. I mean, it became a bestseller. It lifted the lid on some pretty odious stuff that goes on. Some very dubious comments, things that people said, attitudes, and people will give them a chance, but they struggle as an institution because, like any family, they're made up of component parts, and not everybody is as likable as say the Queen. So Charles has got his work cut out. I mean, he's shown himself to be a champion, actually, of inclusivity. He has even, if you believe it or not, lent his support to research into the crown's relationship with the slave trade, going back into the 18th century and before, and 19th century. And it's pretty extraordinary. He might not like what they find, but there is a shift, I think, with Charles to try to be, to really reflect all of the UK. It's very the pluralistic society that you have there, and they're trying to do that at the coronation. But the coronation is sort of the distraction. Really, it's sure. Everything going ahead of like, can he keep this ship afloat?
It's interesting that you point to him in ways that would suggest that he does have a shot at keeping that ship afloat. Because the other thing that I've learned about him, just in our discussions with those who are connected to that world a bit more than we might be, or certainly than I am, is that his wish list, his agenda from a public policy standpoint is really laudable. I mean, he's, as you suggested, kind of on the forefront of alternative energy. He has embraced the realities about the British crown throughout history, as you've also alluded to. So he seems as though, because this flies in the face, and now I will get to Camilla because this is Kim's thing. this flies in the face of the image and reputation that perhaps he has as a result of having been unfaithful to one of the most beloved, I assume, in modern times, Britishers, Diana, right? So I wonder if you can help, square that circle and also speak to this Camilla thing that Kimmel asked more about that.
Well, first of all, he was ahead of his time. He was roundly criticized for years, Charles, for his stance on the environment, for his stance on architecture. He said that cities were being put up with these soulless buildings, concrete jungles, and it was having an effect on the youth. Well, that seems pretty normal today. I think we all kind of accept that. But Charles said it, stuck his neck out in the 70s and 80s, and people said, oh, he's a tree-hugging loony bin. And I would say times proved him right. And there are quite a number of stances that he's taken. Central planning of small towns, for example, to maximize the health and well-being of the people that live there. Transportation issues. He's really been quite a forward-thinking individual. Camilla, it is what it is. Diana died a long time ago. The British people have had quite a long time now to get to grips with Camilla as the Queen Consort. I don't think she is supremely popular. The polls suggest that she is certainly not super popular, but at the same time, she comes in a package deal. And so I suppose if you accept Charles, you accept Camilla. And, it's a question of, can you put behind you the stuff that happened with Diana? And I know a lot of people can't.
Right. Here it is, Liz says Diana died a long time ago, but we haven't forgotten what happened to her. Yeah, it's a weird thing that Americans can't quite choke that down. I say Americans, I assume Britishers as well. But so regardless of how righteous this guy might be, this is a part of his history as well. Yeah. And what is the mood in as you hear in Britain? Is there, when it comes to Camilla, have they digested her now in the way you suggested enough time has passed?
Well, I think some have, some haven't. I think that people are going to essentially have to get used to her. She's taken, this title, Queen Consort. I think people will always think of Charles as their king first off. But you know what? The more these people go around and they do their good works, and if they can actually establish themselves as people who care and move social issues forward. I mean, there's this thing called the Prince's Trust, for example. It's done really remarkable work for inner cities. And a lot of it's done without the fanfare. Some of it, sometimes there's a big concert and people talk about it. But the work of those charities continues. It seems to me if she can be a part of that and part of the movement in Britain, she'll never silence all of her detractors, but she'll... I think slowly, it's like a long game. These royals tend to live a long time because they have good healthcare and so forth. Nice palaces with plenty of central heating. So, Charles could be on the throne 20 years or more. It's a long-term game, and it's all about the stuff that they achieve as king and queen consort.
Natalie writes, the older I get, the more I realize that Diana, Charles, and Camilla were all victims of the system that pressured Charles to marry Diana instead of Camilla initially.
I think it's very astute. Harry's book really shows what the institution of the monarchy is and can do to people. And in some ways, he was a minor player because the chances of him taking the throne now are zero and were always slim. But for Diana, what she went up against, and nobody really knew what she was up against. I think people now know. But at the time, I think it was devastating. And I think a lot of people rightly just are not going to move on from that. Some will. And by the way, I don't know how the Crown television show has helped or hindered. Some of it may be a little fanciful and fictitious, but some of it, but as many things do, it's sort of become the document of historical record. Rehashing all the Camilla Gate and all those interesting things that they said to each other on that recorded phone call brings back some memories, I think, that people are not going to forget about in any time soon. And so it's not it's not an easy playing field to move forward on.
When did the rule change that you could be a divorcee and be a king or a queen?
Well, I think it changed with Camilla. And I think that...
Well, and Charles, right? Because he was technically divorced from Diana.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it changed during the course of him being Prince of Wales, waiting to become king. And there was this question mark, I think, of, would they be able to accept it? And I think eventually the church embraced it. Enough people said, we don't have a problem with it. The Queen embraced the idea. They were seen in public together. It was clear to the British people that this was going to be their future queen. And it changed. But I mean, think of the difference between this and Edward and Mrs. Simpson, where, the British press didn't even report what was happening, that their own king was going to abdicate because he wanted to be with a divorcee. I mean, I know it was a long time ago, but that was always the question mark. It was the precedent for this marriage and for this monarchy was, I assume we've all moved on and people understand and accept divorce far, far more than they ever did back then. But at the same time, Charles is the head of the Church of England. And so those diehards in the Church of England who really believe in marriage for life and not getting remarried to a divorcee and that disqualifying you from being a king, that was the hurdle that they've had to get over. But they've got over it.
No, I mean, as you say, it was a long time ago. Just to quickly make the point, though, but it wasn't that long. I mean, there are people still alive who it's in a lifetime that all happened, right? So they pivoted, I guess is what I'm trying to say, in something of a short order, to accommodate the new,
It's interesting that it's a long time ago, but my mom and dad, somehow the conversation frequently went back to Edward and Mrs. Simpson. It was a kind of a JFK moment. It was something that happened in the British psyche that really uprooted and made people think about, well, what actually do I think about marriage and divorce? And, it was a big, big deal.
And as you suggest, the Church of England's involved. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that has been revised and evolves to a different place that's kind of wrapped up in all of this. You've been to Buckingham Palace, have you not, Aidan Pickering?
I went to Buckingham Palace because my father was knighted by the Queen for services.
Yes, he was, and that's what I was getting at. Yes, indeed.
That's cool.
I think I was 12 years old. I have two older siblings. They only allowed two siblings in to the room where they get the sword out, and the Queen gets the sword out and does the thing with the sword to knight her subject. So I was not allowed in. So I went to the bathrooms and filled up my pockets with the Buckingham Palace soap, and
I love it.
And made a tidy profit on the school playground.
Oh, you resold the soap, did you?
Well, I might have made a couple of pounds for my trouble, but I felt very miffed that I was not able to be in the ceremony itself. So
yeah. Well,
there's never been anything like this.
Exactly, an entrepreneurial. So I was at the White House once for the Kennedy Center Honors, and I had the same thought that you had as a 12-year-old. And that thought was there were these like hand towels in the bathroom, and they had the White House crest on them.
Mark, they got low jacks in them. Don't do it.
I'm glad I didn't take any. I did not.
No, there'll be a knock on the door.
The state of the state in Britain, as you see it now. I mean, the truth is that the royals have while they're a curiosity and will take center stage, politically the power has, it's shifted, right? I mean, it's now, it's to Parliament. I mean, when it comes to British policy, I guess when you look at Brexit, you look at the economics of the British system now and how they interlock both with us, but more to the point with the European Union. I wonder if you can just give us a second on that.
Britain's going through tough economic times. There is a real cost of living, standard of living crisis. People can't pay their bills. Fuel is extraordinarily high priced, both for heating and for driving cars and so forth. It's tough, and so while this coronation will be a nice distraction, the British government's got a lot on its plate. There's a lot going on in Europe. Brexit has happened. They're trying to kind of deal with the fallout of Brexit. There's still question marks over for example, the border in Ireland and what you do with, goods and services that come and go. There's, a war going on that's really not so very far away, and it's affecting all of Europe. And Britain is involved, in giving support to Ukraine. So there's a lot of uncertainty there, and I think there's a lot of there may be hopes for the future and so forth, but I mean, there's a lot of work to do, and there's a lot of people who will love the distraction, but they want answers from their government to say, okay, so what do we do? I mean, the Liz Truss debacle showed that, you got to watch the economic policies that you institute. Whatever.
Well, she came in with a heavy hand for sure. Huh?
She certainly did, and spooked the markets. Well, you know what? Markets are volatile, and they got a lot of work to do, and you sort of take these moments of pageantry as a rest stop, but they'll soon be back on the freeway.
This is something that I wanted to touch on with you anyway in our last minute with Aidan Pickering, as we spend this ramp up to coronation each day talking to a British guy. This may be the guy with a great perspective. What does Aidan, having been to Buckingham Palace and father was knighted, Liz asks, what does Aidan think of asking the public to say the Pledge of Allegiance to the King?
Wonderful question. Wonderful question. It's really extraordinary. And the reason is we do the Pledge of Allegiance here all the time and nobody cares. Well, you don't do that in England. And I tell you why. Britons, and actually Europeans in general, are very nervous about displays of patriotism, nationalism, flag waving, or anything else. And the answer to that lies in what happened in the 1940s with the Second World War. They just don't do it except on, big occasions. So the idea that you would be asked to say a pledge, it's a bit weird. I mean, I suppose if you want to join in, it's voluntary. It's not compulsory. But it does raise the question, well, what if you don't join in? Are you going to get lynched by a mob? I don't know. Look at what happened when Charles came to the throne. It was announced that Charles was the king after Queen Elizabeth II's death. There was a couple of protesters. You remember this? There was one lawyer held up a blank sign outside the Houses of Parliament and was arrested. A blank sign. And then there was another guy in Oxford who shouted, who elected you? Because they were saying, God save the king, God save the king. They said, who elected you? He said, and he was arrested and charged with a crime. So, I mean, do the pledge if you want, fine, whatever. But it's definitely odd. And I think it sits strangely with quite a number of Britons who are a little bit puzzled by it because it's just not something they do. And it, I think, makes some people nervous. And I know there'll be quite a number of people who say, oh, I'm not saying that. I'll watch it on TV and I'll raise my glass to the new king, but I'm not saying that.
Yeah, it is odd. I mean, I think you're right. It's so much a part of our life here as kids. You say, you learn that right away, and then it sort of washes over you. You don't even pay attention to what it really is, but to a specific person, a pledge is sort of a. But it's I don't know.
And that's a good point. It's here you're pledging allegiance to a flag and to a country and to a democratic ideal. There, it's an individual. Well, Britain's not defined by King Charles. I got news for you.
Yeah.
So
right.
what is that allegiance to? And if he goes the direction you don't want, can you withdraw your allegiance? I doubt it. Can you ask for a recount? I doubt it. So I don't know. I would
It's
you know
there,
what you
though.
do? You just mumble, you mouth the words without saying
Right.
them. That way you've got an out.
That's what I would tell my kids. Don't worry about
decide that it's gone south.
Sure. You don't want to be the one kid in class who makes an issue out of it or whatever. Aidan, I adore you. It's great to have you on the show. This is your first time. I hope you'll be a visitor again. You can weigh in on so many things, but I love that the roots of your life actually go back into this world that was connected to the crown.
It's
And
such a pleasure. It's a pleasure to talk about this stuff. And
really enjoyed it. Our first, and you were our inaugural guest on Talk to a British Guy. So thank you. Aidan Pickering. Love it. Thanks, Aidan.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah. Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen,
right.
This is Talk to a British Guy.
I thought it went very well. Albert. Nicely done. Aidan is he's the real
we
thing.
could just roll that music the rest of the show and call it a day.
Albert, thank you.
Well done. So tomorrow we'll talk to a different British guy. Is that the idea? Each day, a different Britisher. And we say guy generically. I'm looking to try to get a British woman in here as well. I don't like being surrounded by guys all the time. So all of that's still to come. Smash the like button for the
Smashed it with your iron rod.
for all that we're doing. Yeah.
Smashed it with your iron rod.
Yeah, smash it with your iron rod, I would say. Next time Aidan's back, I'm going to ask him about the iron rod. There's so much in the coronation. You have different outfits, and they've actually scaled it down at Charles's request, as we were discussing last week. But all of the pomp, the circumstances, the brocades, the medals, all of that. But no iron rods. They had the crown and the jewels that come in and the stone from Scotland that's there just on loan for the coronation, but no iron rods.
Smashed it with your iron rod.
Just saying, maybe as that.
Isn't there a scepter? Doesn't that count?
No, it doesn't. It's not an iron rod. Most certainly does not count. But I like.
We have processes and protocols and standards.
But they don't include an iron rod. So when we come back, we'll play some Dark Brandon stuff. The president from the White House Correspondence dinner over the weekend. I also want to just touch on, again, we're watching the WGA. The Writers Guild of America may strike. And that California bill that will require drug education in schools because of so many fentanyl deaths in California. Thank you, Dr. Steve Garcia, for the super chat. Time to pay the rent first of the month.
Dr. Steve.
Yeah, thank you, doctor. We'll recognize others a little bit later, but you see them when somebody makes a contribution or somebody steps up. They usually come up right away in the chat. You can say, "Do so appreciate it." We're crowdfunded, so very much appreciate that. And I'll revisit at the end of the show how you can be part of our off-air meetup, which is Thursday evening, a live off-air meetup. So all that's still to come. Smash it like an iron
with
rod.
your iron rod.
Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. Police are looking for this man who was involved in the deadly shootings Friday of 5 of his neighbors in Texas, including a 9-year-old boy. Immigration officials say today the suspect, Francisco Oropesa Perez Torres, had entered the U.S. illegally and had been deported by immigration officials at least 4 times and kept coming back. Maryland Senator Ben Cardin will not be seeking re-election in 2024. The Democrat making the announcement today. Cardin is the second-ranking Democrat on the Foreign Relations Committee. He is 79, and again announcing today he will not be seeking re-election. There is a woman who is suing a Central Coast retreat after allegedly experiencing racism. Nicole Evans, who is Black, was at Big Sur's Esalen Institute. Am I saying that right? Esalen?
No,
When
I don't
she
know.
experienced repeated use of racial slurs, including the N-word, in a video played by one instructor last fall, she says. Evans has now filed a civil suit seeking at least $1 million in damages against the instructor and against the retreat, the New Age Center there, because of what she says is the racism that she endured in what she was supposed to what thought was going to be a dream trip for her, and she says ended up being an absolute nightmare. There is an effort, a big crackdown starting today, and it is the start of Governor Gavin Newsom's major move to crack down on San Francisco's open-air drug market. CHP and the California National Guard are now teaming up with San Francisco police and the district attorney's office to help get drug dealers off the streets. And that is starting today. So we'll see if it makes any type of a difference in what's going on in San Francisco. Meanwhile, on Friday night, horrible accident and a rescue happened. A driver seriously injured after his car fell about 530 feet over a cliff on Mount Tam in Marin County. The car ended up getting wedged against a tree, keeping it from falling even farther. Multiple agencies, including 3 choppers, came to the rescue of the driver. They had to use the system of pulleys and ropes and everything to get this person to safety, but major injuries for that driver in the hospital now, still recovering.
Jeez. How does that happen? You just drive off of Mount Tam?
Yeah, absolutely. Drove off a cliff, and it was, at this point, it looks like it was
or something?
some type of an accident. You hate to think that it was anything else, right? 530 feet and lives to tell the tale.
Man,
I'd be willing to bet my lunch that
no.
there's alcohol.
I don't know. Was there evidence that there was alcohol involved?
They didn't say that was the case. They had no indication that there was any type of alcohol at play or drugs or impairment.
Well, okay.
Yeah. The Mark Thompson Show, of course, is crowdfunded. That means we have to rely on you. You can find the links to PayPal and Patreon and so very much more at themarkthompsonshow.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
They had to close down an entire radio station to silence him. And now, he's here. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Thompson.
Girl, you just woo.
Who is having that conversation?
You know what, Hal? You created havoc and chaos.
Seriously, what the
They're looking at just social media.
A werewolf can kill a vampire. Do you know that?
No.
I think I'm the most honest human being, perhaps, that God ever created.
Have you ever seen anything like this?
There is nothing in our history that quite compares to this.
We've never seen anything like it before.
Someone did this to spoil our Christmas.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah, happy to be with you. Thank you for being part of our community. That's one of the great things about this new YouTube platform is that we can visit with so many of you in real time, and we get to kind of know you and know your world, and that you visit with each other is the big thing because, you know, back at KGO, we had a chance to get to know you a little bit, but you didn't get a chance to really know each other. Now the community online, I'd suggest, is oftentimes more robust community than I've ever seen in any relationship between listener and host. So it's really, really cool. So again, thank you for being here. Oh, and then there is this. This is all the details. The Mark Thompson Show Happy Half Hour. It's a meet and greet with Mark and the team. It's an exclusive off-air private Q&A with all of us. It's this Thursday evening. You can bring a cocktail if you want, edible. You can do whatever. We don't judge.
I'm having a little Why You Yelling Red.
There you go. I don't blame you.
Why are you yelling?
The 7 to 7:30 hours when we're going to do it, between 7 and 7:30. It's 30 minutes with Kim, myself. Albert may join. Courtney will be on camera with us. It's a private, off-air Zoom meetup. So what we can talk about, what we can, even music we play, can all be expanded. We could never do it on the air. $75 is what it'll cost for one of 15 Zoom spots. So the reason there are only 15 spots is because we want to give everybody a chance to participate. If we open it up to too many people, then no one will get a word in. So this way, everybody can visit with us. You don't have to be on camera. And this is our first. It's an experiment. We'll tell you how it goes. But you can be part of the first if you grab one of these first 15 spots. I think they're just a couple more left, actually, literally like 3.
Oh, so, I'm excited. I think this is going to be really fun. It's going to be a fun night full of some humor and some camaraderie and getting to meet people. So good.
Yeah.
And there's never been anything like this.
Yeah, that's right. There's never been anything like this, and it is our new hoax. To register, themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. Send us a note. You got to send your name, your email, and phone number, and we'll follow up with you. themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. So I think you'll enjoy it. Good luck.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked.
All right, smash the like button like a boss. And I do want to tell you that we're watching the Writers Guild situation.
Yeah.
This is the deadline, May 1st. As you know, the Writers Guild did approve, their union did approve a strike. So if they need to call the strike, they have the approval of the union. The change in entertainment will be substantial. You will notice it. And they want, we've already reviewed it for you, they want any number of concessions related to this new world of streaming and also even AI. You know, when you're a writer, you don't want scripts and even synopses and other materials generated during a pitch or during the production of an entertainment project to be handled by AI. You know, these unions represent real people. And so that is a negotiating point as well. But we'll keep you posted. I mean, it'll affect, Disney, NBC, Netflix, Paramount, Warner Brothers. I mean, you know.
Yeah.
Jim asked, Mark, are you going to talk about your ride along with LAPD? I saw the clip. Yeah, I posted a short. I did ride with the LAPD on Friday night. And it was really fascinating. It was fascinating for the conversation I had with the cops. It wasn't, like
they want to fear for your life. Or
they want. I fear for my life even right now when I'm doing the show. So I live in constant fear. So, but I know what you're saying, and there is an element of anything could happen.
Yeah.
The guy, the sergeant in charge, said, I want you to seize things and I want it to be a good experience for you, but I also don't want to expose you to any kind of, real danger. So, did you frisk anyone, Tom wants to know. I am going to go back, and you're right. I need to frisk him. I did frisk the sergeant, but that was just for fun.
It was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
I really shouldn't have done. But what I would tell you is that it's fascinating to talk to cops about how the changing face of law enforcement now, and what they're permitted to do, what they're not permitted to do. There's a frustration with they have Gascon, right? You know, in L.A. Kim Gascon.
We had him in San Francisco. That's
Thank
right.
you. And so this progressive DA is something that you might imagine when you're involved in law and order isn't always the thing that's embraced.
Which is really interesting because in San Francisco, George Gascon was both the district attorney for a time, but also he served as the San Francisco police chief for a time. So you would think someone who was in that type of position to be, so close to law enforcement would have maybe a different perspective on crime and what the officers are trying to do. Because for a long time in San Francisco, the complaint of police has been, we'll arrest people, and the next day it's like a revolving door. They're back on the street and nothing ever gets done. So...
Yeah, and that's exactly what they were expressing frustration about. I'll tell you the other thing they had me do, and it was pretty incredible, and I wasn't even associating it with a ride-along, might be the way to put it, is they took me downtown, and they brought me to a room, and in the room, they gave me a gun that wasn't loaded with real bullets, a taser that wasn't a real taser, and they gave me a mace spray receptacle that wasn't real mace. And the reason they were simulators is because they had me run a simulation.
Oh, how'd you do?
So they gave me 3 different scenarios. I didn't know what they were going to be. One was was stopping somebody, pulling them over on the side of the road, and then an incident breaks out. Another was a holdup. And I forget what the third was, but it was fascinating. Now, I was joking before the thing started that I'll just, I'll shoot everybody. I mean, I'm so scared. The minute I get out there, I'm going to be just bam, bam, bam. But they give you those options of these other things, the mace and the taser and the non-lethal ways to handle these situations.
Right.
And you actually end up having to calculate this stuff in a real big hurry. I didn't get any training on it per se. I read while they were setting it up, I read a little thing, sort of the basic precepts of use of force and lethal force. So I kind of had a sense of it. But Kim, I will tell you this. They told me I did better than 90% of the people who take the simulation.
Wow. Yeah. You've missed your calling. You could have been a cop.
The thing
Officer Thompson calling Officer Thompson.
The thing that keeps me from being a cop.
Detective Thompson.
Yeah, is
what he's got going here is a situation.
Or maybe
Hey, which one do you use, Mark Thompson?
I'm too lazy to be a cop. You got to get out of the car and run guys down and hold people down or difficult. And
if they start running, you just let that guy go.
Yeah, I would. It's I'm not. If I can go by with the car and just stick my hand out and grab them, then I would do it. But otherwise,
like on TV.
Really,
yeah. But you see in those simulations how the split-second decisions they have to make, right?
Yeah.
It kind of, I think, hits that home. I'm impressed that you did so well.
I was impressed also. I was surprised, really, when I say impressed. I was just surprised I did so well. I think law enforcement has never been harder, and I have a lot of, and I think there's so many people involved in law enforcement who really want to do the right thing, want to improve the community. So many who feel that their hands are tied, and then so many of that group that have to answer for the ones that are involved in brutality, in overuse of force, in random use of force, in reckless use of force. And they talked about this. Said, like those guys in Minnesota, they all of a sudden we've got a situation here in LA where people are angry and people, want to defund the police or whatever it is, whatever the slogan is. We become enemies. Before that guy in Minnesota did that, he was saying to me, people thought well of what we did. you know?
Yeah.
When COVID started, we were really embraced by the community as those who were helping to, you know, kind of keep the peace. He said, but after the, you know, George Floyd thing, he said, now we were getting blamed for George Floyd. We're not, us cops, we're not like that, you know. I sensed a frustration and a sincerity through it all that I was impressed with, you know. I have to say, I was really impressed. Look, I also know that law enforcement has a lot of challenges, and the way that law enforcement interacts with the community can be full of those challenges. The community has challenges that we've never had before, with drugs, with mental illness, with homelessness that spills over into law enforcement problems, as you know. Public urination, public defecation. These are things that just didn't exist in the numbers that they exist now.
Well, entire giant homeless encampments and tent cities and
thank you.
Yeah.
And as you were saying before, these open air drug markets, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I, you know, have mad respect for the people who put on the badge. It's a who want to do good. It's a tough situation.
They just can't find enough people to join them. So, you know, then the job becomes even more difficult.
Albert, you are our leader. I mean, like it or not.
There's a reason that this place is fun.
You're the reason that this place is fun, Albert. Could you speak to what we're going to do next? Do you have time for some Dark Brandon?
I think we do have time. We have a couple minutes here. We do want to. Maybe we should do some shout outs first, then we can get there.
Okay, shout outs, and then I'll hit Biden with some of his best stuff from the White House Correspondence dinner. I do appreciate all the ways, let me just say this before we put them up, that you help us. You know, we're crowdfunded, and increasingly, you know, we have challenges, and we're trying to expand the show. And I told you I had the long conference call this morning where I'm trying to, you know, build different ways in which we can raise money, perhaps bring advertisers in, et cetera. We're right in that middle ground where we're not quite a huge show, but we're not quite a tiny show. So really, we depend on you more than anything. So thanks, everybody who's become a Patreon member or a PayPal member. You can do both through themarkthompsonshow.com, themarkthompsonshow.com.
Are we at 11,070 yet? I keep waiting.
Well, it's not 11,070. It's 11,780.
Oh, my apologies. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, let's get the
right.
goals straight. You know?
Yeah.
All I want is 11,780.
That's right.
And we're not there yet. When we're there, you'll know it. William DiMichele, thank you for $5. Come on. Thank you for the super
Big
sticker.
shout out.
Thank you, William Bill. Sandra Thomas for $20.
Big shout out.
Ashley shout out. Thank you for the super sticker, Sandra. Appreciate that. I was looking for the Anne. Thank you, Anne, for a quick 10.
Thank you so
much, Anne. Here on Coronation Week, I give you a British thank you on behalf of all of us. You too, Vivian L. Shawa, regular contributor and viewer. Thank you, Vivian. Big shout out. Big shout out. Buck is, if there was a Smartass of the Year award, it would go to Buck. And thank you so much. Thank you so much, Buck. Thank you. Kevin Hobbs, you are Hall of Fame. Big shout out. Ashley shout out. And I'm not going to cry.
I'm not gonna cry.
But 44-44. Very strong. Takes us to a new place. Does help us. And I really appreciate it, Kevin Hobbs. You know you're Hall of Fame. You have a statue in the circle. There's a large circle in Thompson Terrace in the metaverse. And you have a statue there. Sausalito Steve for 20. Big shout out.
Big shout out.
Yeah. I love it. And you can find us at themarkthompsonshow.com. You have to put the in there, otherwise you end up in the magical home of a ventriloquist who is a
Christian ventriloquist.
Yes, he's a Christian ventriloquist, and I still hope to have him on. Maybe when we get to
God and puppets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing wrong with that. I
mean, you have your finger puppets, so I think maybe
why shouldn't he be allowed to write?
I just want to find
11,780. Yeah. So at 11,780, something big will happen here.
Big shout out.
Big shout out to Trevor in Concord.
I just want to find 11,780.
Okay.
Which is one more than we have.
Okay. Well.
I only need 11,000.
Yeah. Okay. I will say this, and then I will get quickly to the correspondence dinner. It's amazing to me the slow pace of bringing legal judgments to Donald Trump. We'll talk about this with David K. Johnston tomorrow. I also have another Britisher to talk to a British guy who has strong feelings about this as well as a journalist.
Yeah.
I find it immensely frustrating. And I think that there's a questionable legitimacy to it, to be honest. Especially when you have recordings like that. You know what I mean?
I need 11,000.
Yeah, okay. All right, that's that. Thank you for the contributions, everybody.
The Mark Thompson Show.
The correspondence dinner was marked by Biden making some biting remarks toward Fox and toward the right. I'll tell you one thing they did well with Joe Biden. They didn't have him get right into the jokes because he's not a jokester, and he's also, Obama had such great timing and the last president didn't attend the dinner at all. So you have this guy up there in Biden who has great sincerity and heart, at least that he leads with that. And so they did with those comments sort of honor that and then segue into the joke part that, is written by comedy writers. Joe Fong, thank you and a big Dan Ashley shout out to you, Joe.
Big shout out.
Thank you for the $10 in our virtual tip jar, the super sticker from Joe. Albert, favor us with a little bit of Dark Brandon, if you would.
At Ron DeSantis, I had a lot of Ron DeSantis jokes ready. But Mickey Mouse beat the hell out of me, got there first. Now look, can't be too rough on the guy. After his re-election as governor, he was asked if he had a mandate. He said, hell no, I'm straight. I'm straight. I'll give you time to think that one through. You might think I don't like Rupert Murdoch. That's simply not true. How could I dislike a guy who makes me look like Harry Styles? Call me old. I call it being seasoned. You say I'm ancient. I say I'm wise. You say I'm over the hill. Don Lemon would say that's a man in his prime. This dinner is one of the two great traditions in Washington. The other one is underestimating me and Kamala. But the truth is, we really have a record to be proud of. Vaccinated the nation, transformed the economy, earned historic legislative victories and midterm results, but the job isn't finished. I mean, it is finished for Tucker Carlson.
Oh,
what are you wooing about like that? Like you think that's not reasonable? Give me a break. Hey, give me a break. I think you don't know this. Kevin McCarthy called me and asked me, Joe, what the hell's your secret? I'm not even kidding about that one. The speaker's trying to claim a big win this week. But the last time Republicans voted on something that hapless, it took 15 tries.
That's kind of a cut down on it. He was funny. I don't know that even in that cut down you get it. But he did. I thought he had some biting, funny material. I got to give it, to his writers. He really,
Tucker Carlson thing was pretty good. I'm sorry I knocked my microphone over during the that thing.
He did a whole Fox News thing that was pretty funny. I mean, but Fox News, the head of Fox News, the woman who's still there, running Fox News. She's mentioned in the Dominion suits, etc. She got up and left with a bunch of other Fox News Channel people,
Really?
and she didn't even stay for Roy Wood Jr. Yeah, so
in a huff, like in a huff that she was upset about what was being said, because that's the whole point of that dinner,
right? Of course,
to be able to take a joke, right?
I mean, she didn't leave because she, had to relieve the babysitter at home. She left, I think, because it was she was offended by it. But you're right. I mean, and to be honest, he went after MSNBC. He went after. He said, "Nice to see you people from MSNBC and you people in government who are going to be on MSNBC in the future." And I mean, he was. I thought his material was pretty. Look, his material is definitely directed to Biden's material is directed to bash Fox News and to bash the right. There's no question. But he's a Democratic president, and what do you expect? But Roy Wood Jr. stuff was equal. I thought it was pretty. He was insulting both sides. In fact, I think that MSNBC bit was Roy Wood Jr.'s. But anyway, I thought it was good. I'm not a super big fan of that. I feel like it's become this a little too chummy. But I know that that we've had that conversation before, and it seems as though it's here to stay. So, I guess we have to.
Trump who wouldn't go? Didn't he boycott going to it?
Yeah. Trump didn't go. Fox News had always planned to leave the dinner. Vilma says, I didn't know that. They did a CNN joke too. That's right, John. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it was, as Kim, I think, correctly says, it's part of the deal, man. You go, you're going to get insulted. You're going to get roasted.
You are going to get. That's what it is. It's a full-on ribbing, and anyone who steps foot in the room should know you could be the butt of any joke. So that's true. The night. That's what it is.
Everybody smash the like button like a boss. I know we're a little bit late. I am.
There is no Nikki Maduro show today.
Oh no, there isn't.
Well, Nikki got called to work at her second job, and I just found out about it, so I'm very ill prepared. So the Nikki Maduro show is dark on a Monday, so don't worry if you run over, because I think that's great. Just keep on rolling.
I see. Well, that is very very cool. When Obama made a complete fool of Trump at his White House Correspondence dinner, Trump was almost crying. Well, many feel that animated Trump to actually run, but it definitely didn't help their relationship. I know that, but I do want to mention again, it is Thursday evening is our meetup. I'll tell you more about that tomorrow. But I think we're down to just our last couple of spots. Isn't there one that's a little less wordy? The happy. There you go. It's the happy half hour, 7 to 7:30 on Thursday night. It's a private off-air Zoom meetup. $75 gets you the link. We're trying to raise money for the show. That's why we're here. Only 15 spots because we want everybody to have a chance to talk and exchange different thoughts and views and fun. To register, it's the Mark Thompson Show at gmail.com. Send your name, your email, and your phone number, and we will get to you. Only 15 spots. So that's for Thursday evening, the happy half hour. Meantime, tomorrow, David K. Johnston, another British guy. And we catch...
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
It would help if Albert would check the emails.
Out of time. Bye-bye.
Somebody, how dare you kick Albert on the way out? All right, till tomorrow. Bye-bye.